Hi there, I'm JP, and I'm a master of Divinity, and I've been one for about 3 years now, and it's been a long road, but just got my chip, and I feel rewarded for staying on the road for 3 years. I'm on the 8th step.
Are you trying to talk like you're like an addict?
I guess, yeah. I wasn't. I don't know. I was riffing.
You were riffing,
yeah.
Which is what we often do on this here podcast.
Yeah, I don't know where I was going with that. I'm JP. I'm the moderator. And this is Masters of Divinity. And I'm here with Father Chuck.
Hey, what's up? I realize in our in the pop culture catechism thing that I started recently. And as you've noticed, if you've watched it, you will notice that I'm a little bit curious. But what do we call ourselves? Are we the masters? Because we always talk about you. It's like, hi, I'm this is
like official titles.
I'm the moderator, and I'm with Chuck, and I'm with Matt. And then whenever I step into the hosting role, I always say I'm the moderator. We always talk about we already know who the moderator is. But what are the non-moderators? What are we? Are we the masters?
Technically, how I always saw it is each one of us are hosts, and so we're all co-hosts. But only one of us is the moderator, and it's sort of like whoever's steering the ship.
Okay.
For that episode.
Okay, so then I would say that I am one of the hosts of Masters of Divinity.
Yeah.
A member of the mod squad, if you so desire.
Yeah, but I've actually thought
it's official
about.
Now.
Yeah, but I've actually thought about ditching the whole moderator moniker because it's not really a panel anymore. All three of us kind of equally talk.
Right.
But I guess there does require some steerage.
Yes.
At some point, and that person is sort of like a skipper.
Right.
So I don't know.
Maybe that's what you're not the moderator. You're the skipper.
Do not call me skipper.
You're the skipper. I'm trying to think if it's me or Matt is the Gilligan. I'm definitely the Gilligan.
You can be Gilligan. Matt can be the professor. Or
I'm trying to think actually if I'm the professor because I
you're
don't know.
Technically
I'm Ginger. Let's be honest.
You and Matt are Ginger and Marianne. Settled.
And you're the skipper. There is no Gilligan. Gilligan is you, the listener.
our little buddy. Yeah. So it's a new year.
It is. It's 2019. How crazy is that?
I know. And for some reason, I'm really excited about 2019. I think it's because it's been 20 years since 1999. And I have a lot of fond memories of 1999.
Yeah. I mean, just in the fact that 1999 is easily one of the greatest years in movie history.
I agree. Wholeheartedly.
It was so related to that. Kana and I, a gift that I bought for us for Christmas was the first 6 episodes of Star Wars on Blu-ray.
Nice.
And so we have embarked. Last night we started. We are gonna watch them in what is called machete order.
Okay.
For listeners who don't know about machete order, it comes from a smallish blog called Machete Juggling Not Allowed. Or no, absolutely no machete juggling. That's what it's called. And the guy who started it decided he was going to call this Machete Order. And what it is you watch A New Hope, Empire Strikes Back, and then you watch Attack of the Clones, Revenge of the Sith, then Return of the Jedi. And he's got a great article about how this all works out and how it makes all the movies better. And so Kana and I have been talking for years about doing this, so we finally decided to do that. But the reason I mention all this is because the one movie that we're not watching in all of this, well, we will later, but is one that will be 20 years old this year, and that is
Phantom Menace.
1999, 20 years. I mean, The Matrix was also 1999,
The
20
Matrix,
years.
The Mummy.
The Mummy.
Blair Witch Project.
The Good Mummy.
Yeah, the Good Mummy.
Blair Witch. Wow.
Blair Witch Project. And yeah, I actually have some plans this year. I'm going to sort of pay tribute to that year on a more personal note. But yeah,
it was such a great year in movies, such a great year in pop culture, and But what's crazy to think is, just as an aside, is in terms of thinking about Star Wars in the moment, is that 20 years ago, Phantom Menace came out.
Yeah.
Realize that Phantom Menace came out 22 years after A New Hope.
Yeah.
So there's almost, when we were kids, it felt like it had been like a century.
It felt like 100 years.
Yeah, since like a Star Wars movie had been made.
Yeah.
But it was only 20 years.
I know.
I look at it right now, I'm thinking, wow, Phantom Menace feels like it just came out.
Yeah.
But it's kind of interesting that the way that as we get older, our perception of time changes.
Well, that too, and I think a lot of it has to do with, a lot of people are saying like Richard Linklater, who made Boyhood.
Yeah.
When he made that movie that takes place over a span of like 12 years, and he said that his biggest surprise is like how much the culture didn't change, like styles and fashion and media in general and stuff. And when you kind of think about it, and I've looked into sort of the reasoning behind this, and I think it's because, the 70s were so much closer to that enormous cultural shift that happened.
Mm-hmm.
A big cultural revolution happened in this country in the late 60s that like changed everything. It changed the way we dress, changed the way we talk, changed the way we listen to music, watch movies, the politics, socially, all kinds of things. And so like, we've always been in that post-revolution era, which has caused us to like just sort of rapidly advance. And, there hasn't been another revolution. And like most revolutions, quote, revolutions that happen have been like technological, I guess. And they've been like corporate sponsors, so that it's not going to create much of a social change.
Right.
So that's why 20 years ago today is less dynamic than 20 years ago from like 1999.
Right. Well, and there's also, of course, the little theory that I cooked up for us earlier on our Facebook message.
Yeah.
Which is about. Should I just go into that? Is that something we should just jump right into?
You should do it.
So I'll mention what inspired it. I shouldn't take credit for this. I was reading an article on Cracked.com of blessed memory, and there was a comment on this about our perceptions of happiness and success, and how those perceptions have kind of messed with our heads, like how the pressure that people feel and whatnot. But this guy who made this comment mentioned how he didn't say it outright, but it got me thinking about how so much of our perception of happiness, success, fulfillment, and all of that is shaped by the baby boomer generation. Mm-hmm. And I realized that the baby boomer generation came of age, entered into the professional world, and started becoming like the creatives, the people who shape culture, like intentionally shaping culture, in the 1970s. That's when they entered their 20s. Yeah. And we have a tendency to look at the 1970s as kind of a depressing time. But if you think about it, because the comment this guy made was that when you actually look at some of the actual data of the 1970s, it wasn't that depressing of a time. Like in terms of it was colorful, exciting, and there were people who were doing well in their lives, people who felt degrees of success and all that. But the movies and pop culture of the 70s make it seem like it wasn't. And his argument, and this is the argument that I sort of picked up on, is that was because the baby boomers were in their 20s, just entering into the professional world in the 1970s, and that is that's a depressing and uncertain time for everyone involved. And so the idea then that they would reflect that worldview onto everyone by shaping, because they made the movies and the television and everything, that sort of shaped us into thinking that way. And then, of course, things suddenly get really positive in the 80s. Right. But that's when they start entering their 30s. They're more established in their careers. They're having kids. They finally found some degree of success. So then it makes sense. Oh yeah, now this is a great time. And then their kids become teenagers, like middle school to teenagers in the 90s, and so there's all this angst that comes with that, and then there's and then of course that generation begins to start coming into their own in the 2000s. They start taking over, and stuff begins to start changing. But this idea that our understanding of the 20th century, particularly the later half of the 20th century, is shaped by the memories and perspective of the baby boomers, because they were in charge of creating our culture, our movies, our television, our art, like painting, all of that. To me, it's a very interesting thing to talk about and to think about. And I think it's interesting that we're talking right now about, 20 years on from the 90s and how we're looking back and experiencing it, and how much of it was, handed on to us. And maybe the reason why it doesn't feel so drastically different is because for the past 20 years, the baby boomers are in retirement age, and so they're not necessarily making any major changes. And so because they're the ones kind of still holding the purse strings on making movies and television and other things, it's sort of stagnated because they've stagnated.
Mm-hmm. I look at this through the lens of, as like a filmmaker, and I look at it through the lens of cinema history. And the 70s is when the new Hollywood era had started.
Right.
Technically, like late 60s, but the 70s is when it exploded. You had Steven Spielberg, you had Martin Scorsese, you had Francis Ford Coppola, Brian De Palma, George Lucas, the movie brats, as they were called, who had sort of, the studio system had been like demolished, and then these brats came in and changed everything.
Terrence Malick, right?
Terrence Malick to a certain extent, yeah.
Because Badlands, he did Badlands in the 70s.
Yeah, he's definitely one of the generation influenced by like the New French Wave and a lot of world cinema that was influencing them, and also like classic studio system films like in the 1930s and 40s. And so when I look at their career trajectory, 70s was like a real experimental time. You had Jaws, you had Chinatown, you had Taxi Driver, Carrie, Badlands, these really visceral and envelope-pushing films that are really grabbing people's attention, made by like 25-year-olds, which had never been done in Hollywood, at least not in decades, at least not since it had been like founded back in the silent era, before the Hays Code. And then you kind of roll into the 80s, and just kind of rolling in success. Spielberg is probably doing the best. Spielberg and Lucas are probably doing better than anybody else during the 80s, because it's like they're tapping into that sort of family-friendly market, making genre pictures.
Do you know a movie, weirdly, I think, just because you're thinking about, a movie I sort of, just in my subconscious, when I think of the 80s and I think of 80s movies, do you know what movie comes to mind for some odd reason, but not necessarily odd? And that is Michael J. Fox's The Secret of My Success.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like that is such a quintessential distillation of the 80s financial success mindset.
Ghostbusters.
Ghostbusters.
Which is like the most pro-capitalist movie of the 80s.
Right. I mean, the Environmental Protection Agency are the villains in that movie.
Yeah, it's all about like, we're going to save the world by starting a business.
Yep.
And screw the public sector. We're going to the private sector.
Right.
Screw academia. We're going to start a little business, and
we're going to fight against regulation because that stifles entrepreneurial creativity.
There's little nuances in like lines that people say that like I never picked up growing up until like recently, until I started getting more like aware about politics and stuff. But like even Bill Murray, Peter Venkman mentions like talking about outsourcing, like doing contract work for the military.
Yeah.
Like that's kind of scary, like with their nuclear weapons.
Right.
Yeah, so I think that's such an interesting way to look at it. And then you have like John Carpenter, who made like They Live, which is like kind of I've sort of found this to be like the antithesis to Ghostbusters.
Right.
Great double feature. But what I was getting at, 80s, like everyone's just kind of rolling in it. Like George Lucas, he's doing his Lucasfilm thing. Spielberg's doing his Amblin thing. The other artsy guys are wafting a little. And the 90s, things start to kind of like die out. And I think it's because they're getting older, they're having kids, they're having families. 90s was like the only decade was without Star Wars, except for like the special editions.
Right.
So yeah, it's interesting. When you think about how the older they get, like the more, I guess, lame some of the projects become. With a few exceptions.
Right. I mean, you look at I mean, Spielberg's always been kind of an exception, but he starts really just getting into like prestige.
Oh yeah.
Movies.
Yeah, especially with Schindler's List.
Yeah. But like Lucas, I mean, gosh, what an example there.
He just got into just the corporate, like, you know, maximizing profits with like Dolby and Skywalker Sound, or not Dolby, THX.
Right.
Skywalker Sound and Lucasfilm and LucasArts.
ILM.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's the interesting thing about Lucas for me is that he stops being a filmmaker pretty much after Star Wars, like A New Hope, because he hands the reins off. He's an executive producer for the other two movies, and he just focuses so much of his efforts and energy on, you know, film technique, special effects, that kind of thing, and works really closely with Jim Henson's studio to do a lot of things, because I know like what Henson's studio is involved with, like Willow, and I think also with the Ewok movies.
Yes. We gotta talk about those movies one day.
Yes, we do. But I mean, some very interesting, you know, it's an interesting alternative avenue of creativity that he takes during that time period.
Yeah, because it's so...
He's not a storyteller, but he's definitely innovating.
Yeah, he's innovating. But what's so weird about it is, like, that was never who Lucas wanted to be. And it was never, like, the skin that he was comfortable in. Both, like, the corporate skin and the, like, you know, fantasy film maker thing. Like, he... You know, if you go back and you watch THX 1138 and American Graffiti, like, that is George Lucas. Like, that's the kind of stuff he thought he was going to make for the rest of his life. And apparently he's making right now, and he's not showing anybody.
Interesting.
That's what he said he was going to do after he sold Star Wars off.
I'd be really interested to see what he's doing, if he is doing stuff in secret. I'd be really interested in that.
I would too.
And, but I also think of... you know, somewhat on a Star Wars wave right now as we're talking about this, about, of course, my beloved Last Jedi, which I have determined, in my opinion, and you know, we may lose listeners over this, but I think it's the best Star Wars movie.
Period?
Period.
Really?
I mean, I'll probably be watching Empire tonight, so I'll get to reassess, but I kind of think that Last Jedi is the best Star Wars movie.
And why do you think that? I need to know. I need to probe this. And since we're just riffing, I can do that.
I think because it does a lot to expand the mythology of what the core mythology of what Star Wars is about, particularly around like the Force.
Right.
And it while also to me making a statement. Like, it makes an artistic statement. I'm not sure that Empire, as good as it is, makes a statement.
I think you could divine things, and I think a lot of people have. I think you're overall right. I think A New Hope makes more of a statement than Empire does.
Yes.
Because, you know, Lucas has always said that's supposed to be like a protest film.
Right. Yeah, no, totally. And watching A New Hope last night and picking up on the subtle politics conversations that are in the margins about like the dissolving of the Senate and the way that Vader and Tarkin are doing like all the stuff they're doing to capture Leia, and all of that is being done, and the way they're using sort of cover their action so that the Senate doesn't start developing more sympathy toward the rebellion. Yeah. Like, there's just this stuff that I just never picked up on. In all the years I've watched Star Wars, I just never really paid attention to it until this past time. But in the way that, you know, so that kind of speaks to the way that, like, you know, military industrial complex does those same kind of things, right? They like, they've, you know, the way, particularly in the 80s when we did stuff with like the Afghanis and the Russians and how we would do, you know, or actually probably more the Latin American revolutionary movements, how we made them look, you know, we tried to make them look really bad. Because
just everything we do in Vietnam, like,
well, right.
Southeast Asia.
Yeah. But no, Last Jedi is, what I really like about Last Jedi, and I guess, is that you obviously have to take the whole original trilogy and even some of the prequel trilogy in mind when watching it. So I guess in some ways, like in terms of a movie of its standalone nature, like it does rely on other things in order to make sense as a film. But the fact that it for just Luke, because I love Luke Skywalker as a character, and even watching A New Hope last night, I realized Luke has always been impulsive. He's just, he gets up early in the morning to go try to find R2D2 because he doesn't want to get in trouble, or he just runs away from Obi-Wan to go check on his family, regardless of whether or not stormtroopers are currently there and he could get himself killed. Right. He's just a very impulsive person. We see it in Empire, we see it in all these other things. And the fact that then that graduates into Last Jedi, where he sort of realizes I am this impulsive person, and it almost led me to kill this kid. And so now I'm going to go, I don't trust myself anymore to not be impulsive. So I'm actually going to go fly to this middle of nowhere planet. I'm going to make the map disappear. I'm going to crash my X-Wing so I can't even leave if I wanted to, in order to prevent himself from being that kind of impulsive person, which is, I think, an interesting and good storytelling piece about, the coming to terms with the kind of person that you are, but also the ways in which we can kind of punish ourselves. And I really like the elegance of the film and how, Luke's triumphant moment at the end of the movie is still sort of fitting within his exile piece, because he actually doesn't leave the planet. But he and he also manages to win a battle by not going like nuts.
Right.
He's not like Yoda at the end of Clone Wars when we all lost our minds seeing Yoda do all that flipping and running around and stuff. Luke is completely in defensive position the entire fight. And
he didn't even have to be, because he's not even there. So
right. And so the lessons that's learned and the way just that all that stuff to me just makes it such a great film, and just the fact that it works with this subtlety, this narrative subtlety that's not about bombast and about, the fact that Rian Johnson would be gutsy enough to not give in to fan service is something that's really great. But in terms of our conversation that we're having right now, what really strikes me about the movie is I see it as a sort of millennial critique of the boomer generation and the way that the boomers have shaped our understanding of culture, this thing that I've just talked about.
That's interesting.
Because George Lucas himself says that Luke is him, right? Lucas. And that he says that, Luke, Luke is a stand-in for him. And so Last Jedi does kind of a bit of a criticism on some of that, but it has this sort of meta level story around our perception of Star Wars' own mythology. And like with the books that are in the sacred tree, and that sense of harboring the past and not letting go and moving on, and that sense of the Jedi, that line where Luke says to Rey, the idea that the Jedi have this exclusive hold over the Force is vanity, and that's what led to their downfall. Is what a great thing. There's just some good, honest lessons and self-reflection that come from it. And I think it's just a very wise movie. And that when watched correctly, I think is a movie that there's a lot to be garnered out of it in terms of how it impacts, the original Star Wars impacted spirituality and philosophy for people, because it introduced a lot of Eastern philosophy. It introduced this idea of a force, and the impact that it had on American spirituality is unparalleled. And I think that Last Jedi then takes that to another level, rather than just sort of retreading the same ideas as like the prequels kind of did, but tried to show them like, oh, this is what they were like when they were in their fullness. Like, no, let's be more generous about it. Let's show how this spirituality is enriched and deepened rather than being flashy and showy.
Right, and it's happening on the peripheral storylines as well. Like you have, Rose's big moment when she saves Finn from sacrificing himself.
Right,
and a lot of people were really bothered by that. A lot of people hate Rose, and they said that whole message didn't make sense. But you have to understand how many people have been sacrificing themselves to, like, destroy the First Order. Her sister sacrificed herself, and then Holdo sacrificed herself, and then it's like she's trying to change the nature of the Resistance in a way.
Right, and that what I don't understand is how many people watch that movie and they hear Kylo Ren as though he's the moral.
Yeah, I don't like that either. There were a lot of film critics
with that whole thing about like destroy. You have to destroy your past, and that's not the message of the movie.
Not at all. Not at all. No.
He is reprimanded like for that sentiment. Because the end of the movie is all about preserving the past, but preserving it in a way that is right. Yeah, not don't. It's not infallible and absolute, but it's there, and we have to address it. You can't just forget it. Like it's still a part of.
That's the whole point of bringing in Yoda.
Right.
That's what he teaches Luke.
So yeah, we could just I could just keep talking all night about.
Me too. I could too.
About The Last Jedi, but that's why I think it's the best Star Wars movie.
You know what's interesting about it is that like I don't think, I mean, it's not my favorite of the Star Wars movies. I still just have a heart for the very first one, the original.
Yeah.
But like I'm not offended at all by people who say it's like the best one. I'm like, that's cool, because it is so great, and just I think just the technique alone, like there are layers and layers and layers of technique, not just the storytelling but the filmmaking in general, the technical stuff that Rian Johnson brought. There's more technique in this movie than in any Star Wars movie, and it makes it just a completely fresh and different and revolutionizing experience for the Star Wars series.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen some people, some critics, particularly like David Faraci, who said that their feeling around The Last Jedi was that was the movie they wanted to see when the credits on Empire rolled.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I can see that.
And I agree with that, and that's why I have to watch Empire again to get my feeling, because I'm one of those people where Empire is the best for the longest time. But I think we can definitely agree that Last Jedi is better than Return of the Jedi.
Yeah. I mean, Return of the Jedi is great for like that opening sequence on Tatooine and the throne room.
Yes, I was just saying that to Kana last night. I was like, all the indoor stuff is just so boring to me.
It is. It's kind of
a slog.
Yeah, and they don't. There's nothing is really happening. Like it's all just warfare and special effects. There's no development with Han, and I mean their relationship is tense, but
well. What's cool? So talking about Machete Order, what's cool about Machete Order, and because you mentioned Leia, made me think of this, is that Machete Order manages to preserve both twists in the two trilogies, prequel and new trilogy, prequel trilogy and original trilogy, because if you watch it in order, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, obviously the twist about Vader is blown.
Right. Yeah.
But if you watch a Machete Order, it's still preserved. But then Palpatine's reveal as Darth Sidious is also preserved. But the other cool thing is that apparently it makes the Leia reveal better, because if you're thinking about it, in Return of the Jedi, Leia's reveal as Luke's sister is so anticlimactic. Like there's no drama to it. It's just sort of like, oh yeah, I guess that's a thing.
Yeah.
Whereas if you watch Revenge of the Sith, you don't know that there's twins inside Padme until she delivers them. And when they deliver, it's first Luke, and then she says Leia. And that's the moment, if you're watching it in Machete Order, if you're watching Star Wars for the first time, that's the moment you realize Leia is Luke's sister.
That's interesting.
And it builds on the fact that the last time you see Yoda in Empire is when he's saying there is another, as Luke takes off to go to Bespin. And so that it makes that reveal stronger, and I've heard it as a result also makes Empire stronger as a movie, because if you watch Revenge of the Sith and then you go into Return of the Jedi, Luke's first appearance makes you think like, oh man, like he's flirting with the dark side here.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's Star Wars.
Well, it's great. It's actually great that you bring up Star Wars, Chuck, because this is actually going to be a banner year for Star Wars.
Yes.
Episode 9 is coming out, and I can't believe I would ever say this, but I am looking forward to what J.J. Abrams does with it. I'm always hesitant, but I'm actually looking forward to it.
Some of the rumors, by the way, are pretty crazy.
I haven't heard anything.
The only one that I've been aware of, and I hope it's not a spoiler for anyone, but is if there's an art book for Force Awakens,
yeah,
that people have alluded to things from that will probably be in his there's been some allusions made that they're drawing from some of the abandoned ideas from Force Awakens for this, and one of those is Kylo Ren having a visit from Vader's Force ghost.
Oh, interesting.
So that somehow Anakin's like there's a split, that the dark side of Anakin can become its own Force ghost, while the good side of him,
maybe in the Sith holocron, just being a fanboy. So episode 9's coming out at the end of the year, and then we also have the Mandalorian,
which I am really excited for.
Yeah, it's going to be their streaming service, Disney's streaming service,
Disney Plus,
the very first live action Star Wars TV series.
Yeah. Show run by Jon Favreau.
Yep, Jon Favreau and a lot of cool people directing.
Bryce Dallas Howard is directing an episode. That's awesome.
Bryce Dallas Howard, Taika Waititi. They even got Dave Filoni, who's known for
he's doing the pilot.
Yeah, known for creating the Clone Wars animated series, and also the new Resistance series that came out recently, which I haven't watched.
And Rebels. He also did Rebels, I think.
Did he do Rebels? I don't really know who's behind that.
I think he did Rebels.
Okay. So he's involved. So it's going to be a really interesting series. I can't wait to see it. And then I think they're bringing back Clone Wars for a spell. And then, of course, 2019, both in summer and in fall, Galaxy's Edge, baby.
I know.
Theme park attraction. Major theme park. I wish I was still 16. I would be flipping out.
Dude, you should come down this year and go with Kana and the boys and I.
That would be awesome. I would love to do that.
If for no other reason, then it'll probably be a lot simpler to ride Avatar Flight of Passage because everyone's going to be over at Star Wars and you can actually enjoy Flight of Passage.
I can't even imagine the crowds that are going to be at Star Wars Land in Disney World.
I can't either. And the Millennium Falcon ride is so you've heard about this Millennium Falcon ride.
Oh yeah, like you're going to pilot the Millennium Falcon or something.
So apparently when you go in, there's like all the chairs of the cockpit. You're assigned one of them. So you're like someone's going to actually fly the thing. Someone's going to be the navigator. Someone's going to be like doing the like jump to light space calculation. Someone will be in all of those chairs.
Yeah.
And apparently every experience will be different.
Yeah. And apparently like decisions you make on the ride will affect like the rest of your visit at the park. Like you'll run into actors who will be like referencing things.
I hope that they can maintain that because in the past when theme parks have tried to do stuff like that, after a while the energy burns out on the character actors. Because I remember when, not that this is the best example to draw from, but I remember when the Holy Land experience in Orlando opened and they tried to maintain that for a while with like Roman soldiers walking around and hassling guests and stuff. Or they would have like zealots come and try to like talk to you about joining their cause and stuff. Like it was cool, but they did not keep it for. I don't think it lasted the whole year.
I would love to go to that, and we could dress up as the People's Liberation Front of Judea from Life of Brian,
or just like modern day like Hezbollah.
I could wear my keffiyeh that I got in Syria.
Yeah, well, have I told you about my green keffiyeh?
I think you have. What?
I have a green keffiyeh. Yeah, I bought a green keffiyeh, and in when I was in Israel, in Jerusalem, I thought it was really cool, and so I bought it in a market, and because I didn't see too many green ones around, and so I went and tracked down this really pretty emerald green one, and our bus driver, who was I hope I'm not like outing anyone, but he was Palestinian, and when he saw it, he was like, "Oh, that's Hezbollah color." I was like, "What? What?" He's like, "Yeah, that's what Hezbollah wear. They wear the green keffiyeh." I was like, "All right."
Oh, that's funny. I thought that the colors were regional because I thought red was Saudi Arabia, green was Palestine and black was. Oh no, maybe yeah. I think that is. I think black is Palestine because I remember. What's his name? Oh, what was the guy's name? Oh, I forgot. I don't know, whatever. But that's funny. Yeah.
Yeah, I have a black one, a purple one, and a green one. So whenever I have the green one, I'm always like, I always get kind of like, I feel rebellious.
It's amazing. Cool. Well, yeah. So yeah, Star Wars Galaxy's Edge. That's opening this year. It's going to be a lot of fun. I can't wait. I'm hesitant to go when it opens because the crowds. It's going to be insane.
Well, dude, and then there's the hotel.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, that's true.
Which I don't know if that's opening yet, but the hotel, dude, I don't know if we've talked about the hotel on this show. The hotel is like everything I wanted when I was 13 years old.
So it's basically you dress up as a character? Is that what I'm hearing? Like they give you an outfit?
Basically opt in. You can like opt in to like a role play part of the hotel.
That's amazing.
And your whole family, like the hotel room, like the windows are going to be designed, like it'll be enclosed. There will be no like natural light in the place because the windows are going to look like star fields going past. Like you're on a ship.
Wow.
And you will be issued uniforms to wear, and you will be in character, and there will be other people, like you'll be given like your role and what you're doing. I think you can kind of sign up like which side of the conflict you want to be. Amazing. And they will give you little tasks and things every day that you can do, like relay secret information to like members of the rebellion or whatever.
That's amazing. I hope they stick with it. Like I hope they go for it. And I hope that these actors are being paid well because that's a lot of work.
You want to do it, right? Like I would do it.
I'll do it, man. I have no shame anymore. I'll dress up as Han Solo. You better treat me like a smuggler.
Well, and the thing is too. I mean, you think about like how many Disney employees are they're theater students. They're looking for to do this gives them more ability to hire more people from drama departments and give them some kind of acting credentials for their
Mm-hmm, totally.
It's actually kind of clever.
Yeah. Speaking of Disney, Chuck,
yes.
I watched something interesting the other day. As you know, I'm a big proponent of YouTube. I like watching the smaller YouTube channels.
Yes.
I stumbled upon a video called "Remain Seated, Please," and it's like a 25-long documentary made by a student filmmaker. And it's about these two guys who met in the 90s at Epcot Center and became best friends because of their shared love of Epcot's Horizons.
Okay.
Do you remember Horizons?
I vaguely.
I never got to ride it. I don't know why I didn't. I went to Epcot plenty of times in the 90s, and I never rode it. But like apparently, according to like Disney Park like super fans, Horizons was like one of the best rides at Disney World.
Okay.
Because it was like this kind of like a showcase of like what the future was going to be like. You went to one space, and it was like this is what a farm is going to look like. This is what schools are going to look like. And you had like robots, and there's all these animatronics.
Yes, that is okay. Because I remember some of that stuff incorporated into innovations later on. Okay. Yeah. Yes. And that's the stuff that Epcot has lost, and it's very sad. Okay, go on.
Yeah, because Horizons closed down in 1999. 20 years ago. Oh my god.
1999 is like the thing we're talking about right now. So maybe we should be maybe some Prince should show up or Limp Bizkit.
Oh god. So these two guys, they call themselves Chief and Hoot.
Nice.
They meet each other in Epcot, and they're like obsessed with Horizons, and they loved it so much. They decided one day to get off of the ride in the middle of it and just explore, because apparently Horizons didn't have security cameras.
Oh wow!
And so they did this thing called the Gap, where they would one person would stay near the loading zone of the tram, and one person stayed at the entrance, and they would give a signal if there was enough a gap between people coming into the ride. And so it's just like a constantly loading, ride. And since it's Epcot, it's not that busy in the 90s.
Not that busy now.
Yeah, I know. And so that's how they would get off the tram, and they would take video cameras and still cameras and just take pictures and video themselves interacting with the animatronics, sitting in the furniture, going behind the scenes. And they showed all this footage. It's amazing. And it's really good. I'm not gonna. It's really funny. It's really exciting. It brought back a lot of memories because I used to live in Orlando back in the 90s, and we definitely got into some mischief and mayhem. We always got caught. We weren't like these guys. We didn't have their skill. But it was just a lot of fun to watch. Look it up. It's called Please Remain Seated, or Remain Seated, Please.
Remain seated, please. Okay.
It's funny. I'll send. You know what? I'm going to put it on our site.
There you go.
It's very funny and has a very unexpectedly touching end. So check it out. It's good. And that actually led me to discover the phenomenon that is the blogspot Disney blogs. I don't know if you know about that. There's like a whole community of Disney park fans, and they're all on Blogspot.
Okay.
And this is actually where all that footage came from. These two guys eventually started this blog called the Mesa Verde Farms, which is the farm that was in the ride of Horizons. And the blog was all about their adventures in Horizons. But there's other blogs. There's one called like Gorillas Don't Type or something, which is like a Jungle Cruise joke. And they're just all these, like all these just like behind the scenes blogs about the Disney parks, and they're all on Blogspot, and they're so outdated, but they keep updating them.
Oh, thank you for letting me know about this, because now I will get nothing accomplished this next week.
I'll send you links. I should. That would actually make a pretty cool feature to write about Disney park blogs.
Yeah, well, and I mean, obviously being the Disney super fan that I am at this point in my life, I love that kind of stuff. And I will say that I am very nostalgic and wistful for late 80s to 90s Epcot.
You'll love this documentary, dude.
Because here's the thing, I'm sad that Epcot is adding more and more intellectual property into their stuff.
That's not cool.
Because what I loved about Epcot is I loved that Future World, which is what I loved about Epcot, first of all, was that when you would go, it was like 2 parks for the price of 1, because you would get Future World and the World Showcase. Yeah. And what I loved about Future World is I just loved the way that I could dream about what the future looks like. And to me, Future World is what the future looks like. Mm-hmm. Like Epcot, from the rounded corners on the signs to that really cool rounded sans serif font that the Epcot logo is, to just all of that, to me, like to the design of the monorail, lots of rounded corner hexagons. That to me is the future. Basically like Star Trek: The Next Generation, but less khaki colored. Is to me, that's the future to me, and that's the future I want to see. The future that like the NASA logo sort of evoked, the worm logo, NASA, and that's disappearing. And just I think in terms of graphic design and aesthetics, I think it's just perfect. And I loved that. My favorite part of one of my favorite parts in Future World was on Spaceship Earth. Where you would, on your descent from the top, you would see like their image of what the future would look like, what a future city would look like and all that kind of stuff. And they took all that away.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And it's not as to me, there's less imagination to it. And yes, I know like that vision of the future looked a little dated, but it was so cool.
Yeah.
You're
right. I mean, what's funny is that you mentioned the World Showcase. I think the World Showcase is why I didn't go on Horizons, because I feel like every time I went to Epcot, whoever I was with would get like really distracted with the World Showcase, and we never ended up in like the futuristic area.
Yeah, well, there's like nothing to do in Future World now, except for the land and Soarin'. I mean, like the Lion King ride is now gone, which is very sad.
With the exception of the Living Seas. I always went on that.
Now, don't get me started on the Living Seas,
because I know what happened to Living Seas.
It is an affront to our creator what they did to the Living Seas. Yeah, like as somebody who deeply loves Finding Nemo, what they did to the Living Seas is not right.
Retrofitting the Finding Nemo on top of Living Seas, right? That's
what they did. And the thing is like Living Seas. For listeners who don't know, Living Seas back when we were kids was really hokey and amazing, because you were visiting Sea Base Alpha.
Hell yeah,
and it involved walking in. You watched this documentary about the formation of the oceans,
which is really ominous, by the way.
Yeah,
really ominous documentary. You think it's like, is this like a horror movie? Oh, it's just creation. Okay.
Yeah. Well, when I was Baptist and we go to Disney, we were told to basically like plug our ears during, which was hilarious, because obvious. It wasn't 60s creation. But there was the formation of the ocean, which I love. And then you went from the theater onto an elevator. Aqualator, yes, that took you below the ocean. When I was little, I ate that up. I thought I was really going somehow below the ocean. Never mind that I did not have any understanding of the geography of Orlando, and that there's no way that I'm going under the ocean.
Right.
But I love that. I love the Aqualator. And then you get into Sea Base 7, which, I mean, still looks the same. But there was this real vision of, like, this is an undersea base. And I was like, this is what I want. Like, I want to live here like, I wanted to live here. I wanted to find out, where are the quarters? Where is all that? I mean, it kind of looked like SeaQuest, which was awesome. I loved it. I loved it so much. And then they turned it into a Nemo attraction. And I mean, like I said, for the most part, it looks the same, but because it doesn't have that whole build-up of, like, being in the future and going to, like, some kind of futuristic undersea base, it's just not the same. And then on top of that, the Coral Reef restaurant, which is attached to it, they redid it to make it look like a cheesecake factory inside. It no longer looks like the place where Uncle Jesse proposed to Aunt Rebecca.
I was just about to say.
It no longer looks like that.
I remember being on the People Mover they put you on, that you go through the aquarium and you see that bubble that's out there.
Not there anymore.
What?
Bubble's gone, dude.
Oh, man. The bubble is where Uncle Jesse and Joey had their episode of the radio show underwater.
Right, and then they were terrified. They couldn't leave it because there was a shark circling, and they were scared of the shark. God, that was, the fun thing about that was when Disney's attendance was kind of dicey in the mid-90s.
Yeah, Michael Eisner was dicey.
Yeah, and so they had all of those, every single one of those TGIF shows did an episode where they went to Disney World in order to drum up pop culture interest in the theme parks.
Yeah, the Full House episodes where they went to Disney World were my jam.
It was a 2-part episode.
Yeah.
That involved a lot, right? Because that's when Jesse and Rebecca and Jesse and Becky got right. They proposed, or did they get married there?
I think they.
Did they get married there? And then it was Danny who proposed to what's her face?
Yeah, I think his co-host on the show. Yeah, I think that's what happened. And it's also
that's right, because he's proposing to her at the Coral Reef restaurant, and they see that Joey and Jesse are, like, being, like, besieged by this, like, lemon shark, and so they like decide to try to go help them or whatever.
Yeah.
But then Michelle disappears.
Right, because she makes the wish, the genie, the Aladdin genie.
Right.
And they say, "Whoa, baby," because the genie shows up.
Yeah.
Right, because they grant her the 3 wishes, like she can do whatever she wants in Disney World. But I forgot what her wishes were.
Right, but don't they eventually find her at the carousel in Magic Kingdom? I think that's where it, like, kind of all culminates.
I guess so. I don't remember.
Anyway,
it's been a long time, my friend. I can't believe I remember that. That's crazy.
Anyway, if you want to see what the Coral Reef restaurant looked like in its the way our good Lord intended, watch that episode of Full House.
It's so funny. I wish. It's like it. I miss the Living Seas because it kind of reminded me of Sea Lab 2021.
Oh gosh, yes. What a great show. The funny thing about, just as a side about Sea Lab 2021, on Sunday mornings, my mom's always been an early service person. She loved going to the 8 a.m. church service, so she'd wake me up at like 5 in the morning. Yeah. And she would wake me up oftentimes by just turning on the TV. Well, for whatever reason, I don't know what channel it was, TBS or something, they would play all of those Hanna-Barbera cartoons like Birdman, Space Ghost, and then Sea Lab 2020.
Yeah.
And so I used to watch all of those, and particularly Sea Lab 2020. So when Sea Lab 2021 came out, like I felt very special because I had seen the original show.
I decided to watch an episode a few weeks ago, and it was my favorite episode, which is when all the power goes out in the lab. And the entire show just takes place with the lab during a blackout on screen. And it's just people yelling at each other the entire episode. And it's still hilarious.
This just as I'm thinking about this riff that we've gone on, JP. We started this episode a little bit talking about New Hollywood and how these groundbreaking filmmakers were sort of drawing on these different inspirations to do stuff to kind of speak to their worldview and the way they understood things. And now here we are talking about what Adult Swim was doing with Gen X filmmakers, who were given sort of, here's the Hanna-Barbera back catalog, do whatever you want with it,
right?
And to come up with some of the most subversive, creative, animation. I mean, I know we've talked before on this show at length about Space Ghost Coast to Coast, and what an incredible show that was.
Yeah, and by the way, this brings up just a side note. I hope y'all are enjoying our Instagram bumps.
They are very John Post. They are very much like Adult Swim.
Maybe a little too much. I should probably rein it back a little, but I'm having fun. That's all. I'm having fun.
Yeah. We're getting likes and some interest. So
I know we've gotten more likes on our Instagram than we've gotten on our Facebook in like the past 3 years.
Well, I'm actually kind of thinking about leaving Facebook. So.
Oh really?
Yeah.
Again.
Like for real though, like actually deleting it.
Oh really?
Yeah.
Oh.
Because the Zuck is kind of a monster.
Oh, I know. There's so much crap.
Sheryl Sandberg is also kind of a monster.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And the stuff that they've known about and just allowed to happen, or just the shady stuff they've been engaged in, it just makes me want to not reward them. And something you said last year before, JP, that it stuck with me, and that is you're bothered by the fact you said you're bothered by the fact that Facebook has sort of insisted upon being your gateway to the internet.
Yeah, kind of like how AOL was. Yeah,
and I realize that that's so true, and I've been thinking a lot about like the church and how like churches push. You got to have a good Facebook page if you want to reach people. That's where people are. You got to be present on social media. Mm-hmm. Why do I have to give in to what some corporate structure says I have to give into?
Yeah.
Like, why is corporate America dictating what I do in the church?
I mean,
am I supporting something that is ostensibly bad?
And what's funny though is that like it only really works if you have like loads of money to drop into it to use for their targeting systems,
right?
Their advertising targeting system. Because ask any YouTube creator who's doing pretty well and kind of getting by, they'll tell you it's not about how you market things. It really is about what you're putting out there. Because if it sucks, no one's going to watch it.
Right.
Like they're not going to watch it because you had a great ad.
Right.
Like the Aaron Mahnke thing I showed you. He talked all about it.
Yeah. Too. On Twitter, yeah, that thing about podcasts, that it's all about creating a good podcast instead of
Yeah. So like, I mean, I think you're probably on the right track there, Chuck. I mean, I would love to actually take this podcast away from Facebook because I don't think it's really doing anything for us. I feel like Instagram is where it's really at.
Yeah, but I mean, Facebook owns Instagram.
I know. We're trying to get as much out of it as I possibly can.
But I understand that the subsidiaries of Facebook have a degree of autonomy.
Yeah.
That because like there's some instance about WhatsApp, but WhatsApp has been able to kind of they've because they're also owned by Facebook, and they've done something to differentiate themselves and to work on like fake news stuff and conspiracy theory stuff. And
I'm just saying, I think our Instagram is way more interesting than our Facebook page. I mean, everything that's on our Facebook page originates on Instagram anyway.
Right.
It gives me a little bit more creative freedom to push things. But having said that, since we have a few minutes left, do you want to kind of talk about? I mean, not spoil anything, but like just kind of talk and mention about our 2019 and what we're planning.
Sure.
So this is our going to be like our third year. Are we approaching our 3rd anniversary?
Third year.
Yeah. So. You probably noticed that we're a bit more active these days on social media. We're on YouTube now, and
let your finger have a good journey to the subscribe button.
Hell yeah! So 2019, we're actually planning on being our biggest year yet. We want to break out this year.
We do.
We want to get more viewers, and that requires better content. We're aware of this.
Yes.
And so you're going to see much more focused.
Yes, even though we're doing an episode that's completely unfocused right now.
Yeah, I know. You're going to see stuff like this. We love to riff. It's fun. It's fun for us. So just saying, keep your eyes peeled. We're going to do a lot of cool stuff this year. We have a lot of cool plans. Things that are happening this year, like I said, Star Wars is having banner year. We got a big plan for that. This is the 80th anniversary of Batman. So we got some ideas for that. Music Mayhem, of course, we're going to do it. We would never Never skipping Music Mayhem.
No.
It's going to be even more music-y and mayhem-y, I'm sure.
We are going to risk everything by talking about anime.
Yes, that is a big event that we're planning. We're going to have a month dedicated to the anime medium, the Japanese animation, and it's going to be interesting. We're still trying to figure out what we're going to watch and which month it's going to be. But
yeah, because we just as an aside, we had thought about calling it, which was a great name, was Anime.
Yeah,
Anime.
But we've already got
we have Music Mayhem. We can't give that up.
No, we can't move that. No, it's a fixture.
I think it'd be funny if we did like Anna February. Just
yeah. So it's going to be a different year. You're going to see more of us and more focused, and it's going to be bigger.
Well, and also let's talk a little bit about how we've already offered, at least I have already offered some additional programming,
right,
for our podcast, and that is that is the Pop Culture Catechism.
Yes, we are going to be utilizing YouTube more. You'll be able to find brand new episodes of the podcast on YouTube, as well as some videos produced by us, namely Pop Culture Catechism.
And just so we can kind of talk about, if you're curious, we'll have more descriptions and stuff as we build this stuff up over the year. But Pop Culture Catechism is a video series. I'm hoping to kind of keep it within about a 10-minute time frame.
That's good.
Where it will be some kind of tenet of the Christian faith, but told from a sort of pop culture framework. So I talked about the incarnation using a Lego figure, and I talked about the Nicene Creed and how it works as a doctrine, in its relationship to doctrine, by talking about the difference between the 1998 Sony Godzilla and the 2014 American Godzilla.
Which was very interesting, and it's very much our brand.
Yeah. So it honestly, as a listener, if you were listening, and are there topics about God that you would like to see me or do this with? Father Fun, who is a friend of the show, who is a regular contributor, has been a regular contributor. We haven't had him this past year, I don't think.
Not since Music Mayhem, I think.
He is. That's right. Yeah, because we had him for the Hamilton episode. He is. He is also wanting to work with me on this and contribute. So you'll see some more priestly people chiming in on the Pop Culture Catechism this year. I don't know that it's going to be weekly. That might be a tough thing to stick with, but hopefully once a month there'll be a new Pop Culture Catechism piece. And I just, as an aside, JP, what was kind of cool is I have the YouTube app. Which, of course, I can mirror to my television. Mm-hmm. And so the other day I watched one of the Pop Culture Catechism videos on my television in my living room. It was kind of cool to see myself on my TV. Nice. Not going to lie. Cool. Not going to lie. So you can do that, too. If you have the YouTube app, you can watch us on your television.
Yeah. You can. And we're going to do some interesting things with YouTube. And that's actually the thing I'm probably most excited for, because we're going to flex creatively using YouTube. And it might take us down a path where you don't just listen to us. You might be seeing more of us as we record this podcast, even. Right.
And as a result of that, too, we've talked about this in the past a little bit, and we're trying not to hammer it too much because we don't want to make people uncomfortable. But we do have a Patreon.
Right.
If you'd like to be a patron of our show, we have a patron.
Yes, we do.
And so thank you.
Thank you very much.
If this is something you would like to, you want to see more stuff, because we could benefit from it.
Right. We
could benefit from your money to do better videos, and other things. So, and I think, aside from just having fun we've had with the podcast, I think we're realizing that we're kind of doing God's work here. Yeah. We're trying to use pop culture to talk about matters of faith and spirituality, and just talk about culture in general.
I think what I've liked about how I've liked watching our podcast grow is, it's not just taking a message from this and then comparing it to a message in the Bible. It's
Right.
like we're kind of examining all sides of everything. Like we're looking at things theologically, we're looking at things psychologically, philosophically, within our own emotional experience, the cultural context.
Yeah.
That's why I say, like, we know what we're talking about. That's why watching this other podcast, and it's started comparing and contrasting. But that's what I liked about us, and I think we are doing something unique. I have found other podcasts that are in a quote intersection between faith and pop culture, unquote. But there's something different about us. I think it's because our extensive knowledge in all of these different fields, and I think it's also we try to be funny, and also we have a unique background and relationship with the evangelical church. I think really informs how we approach everything too.
Right. And I think what I like about us, as opposed to some of the other podcasts that I've heard that are similar to this, is that we're not, I don't think that we don't come across as sort of like jaded, bitter, and burned out on our experience with the evangelical church. Like, obviously we have our baggage and hangups about it, and we're not always positive about that experience. But our whole thing isn't sort of like, let's give a giant middle finger to our past. I think, again, going back to our earlier Star Wars conversation, it's not about destroying what came before, but by being able to sort of embrace the things that were good out of it and bring it into where we are now.
To learn from it.
And to share. I mean, I personally, I think of this past year, my favorite episode that we recorded, I think, is the one we did a few weeks ago about Christian dating. I think that was
a lot of fun.
I think that was top notch episode.
And Josh, thank you so much for making your appearance and recording that intro, buddy. That was really nice. You didn't have to go out of your way to do that. I really appreciate that.
Oh, geez. Yeah, that happened. So we can boast that we had Rob Bell and Joshua Harris on our.
And I hear we might even get John Eldridge, maybe.
Oh, no.
I think he might make an appearance.
Actually, because we did talk about I Kiss Dating Goodbye, we really, as three white former evangelical males, we totally need to do an episode about Wild at Heart.
Oh, hell
we
yeah.
Need to.
That is a Christian curiosity episode just waiting to happen.
A book I never read.
Oh.
You're
going to throw it across the room. I can already tell.
I managed to get through 4 years of Palm Beach Atlantic University and not crack Wild at Heart. I actually bought a copy of it at one point just to have it.
Nice.
And I said, nah, and got rid of it.
Yeah. Well, we've got a lot to look forward to this year. We're going to try our hardest to make it our biggest year yet. And not just, to make a lot of money or to get a lot of viewers, but we want to make really great stuff that we could be proud of, that we can look back on fondly.
I mean, to be fair, we are in an age of there is a glut of podcasts out there.
Oh yeah.
So the fact that you're choosing to listen to us we just thank you, because you've got a lot of options out there.
Exactly. Yeah. So I think that's a good place to end, Chuck.
I agree.
I got children. Anyway, sorry Matt couldn't be here. I miss you, buddy. But he'll probably be with us next week.
Yep.
Anyway, so Father Chuck, thank you so much.
As always, you're welcome, and I'm excited for 2019.
Me too. And audience, internet, thank you so much for listening and coming with us this far. Yes.
Can we make a vow?
Sure. Go ahead. Do we want to wait for Matt before we make a vow?
Let's covenant here, and I think he'd agree with me.
Okay.
Let's covenant. I mean, we can reassert this with Matt if we want. Blissfully, it wasn't so bad this year, but one of the things that I've really just kind of have grown just sick of in internet culture is the treatment of the outgoing year as though it was the worst year in history. And just talk about how horrible everything is, and like, oh, it's killed so many people. Like we had that in 2016, like 2016 strikes again, and all that kind of garbage. Let's just, maybe it's easy for us right now because we're at the start of a year to be like, yay, we're positive. But like, let's not try to like go that route.
Father Chuck, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
And audience, thank you so much for listening. We'll see you next week. Good journey.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. And
good journey.
Good journey.
Good journey.